Did you set a New Year's resolution? Have you already fallen off the wagon? So many people do, but some manage to stick with those resolutions at least maybe the first month, the second month. To talk with us a little bit more is going to be Carrie Craywick. She is with Birmingham Maple Clinic. Thank you so much for being with us. And again, our apologies for getting to you a little bit late in the show.
Not at all. Thank you for having me.
What is the point really of New Year's resolutions? Because we all know we're going to break them.
Yeah, I think it's a normal time to do some goal setting. It's a kind of a rebirth, a restart of the year. And so people really look at it as an opportunity to sort of like renew or reinvent themselves and their goals. The problem so often is that what they do is kind of throw a Hail Mary at the start of the year without really putting the thought into what are the changes they need to make, how to sort of set themselves up for success. It becomes too ambitious, and that's why they implode.
So I wonder too, this year was a little bit different, right? Because we went through 2020 and everyone's looking at 2021 because let's just be honest, 2020, anything is stuck. It didn't matter. Like routines were screwed up, life was turned upside down. But here we are in 2021, and while the vaccine brought hope, we're still in the middle of the pandemic. So does that make it harder for people to stick with some of these resolutions?
I actually think it probably does, or maybe even makes them feel sort of hopeless about setting them to begin with. If you were planning for something big and then, the possibility we were talking about, like canceled travel or things like that, that would be such a disappointment. So people may actually find themselves more successful this year if they make their goals really COVID friendly, and to do that, make them very small. So instead of thinking of a big ambitious goal, to pick like maybe a daily behavior, one thing you'd like to apply to your normal routine, a small daily behavior is going to be much more successful for being able to maintain and even create some long-term lasting change than a big vague goal.
I did see an interview with an individual yesterday on one of the morning news shows. He lost 80 pounds during the pandemic, but he did say just that. I started with one tiny little goal. And then once I mastered that, then the next month I set another goal and I added on to that goal, because how long does it take for an individual to actually change their habits?
It really takes doing something, making something a part of your routine for, 3 or more weeks. And it also takes some flexibility. So I think people have a goal, they want to do something and they think they should do it every single day. And then when they miss a day, they feel like it's a wash. So instead, really looking at a month and tracking a month and saying, hey, did I hit 75% of the days of this month? That would be sort of a much more successful way to track your behavior. I think there's a real opportunity to use January also as, what is it that I want, and what are all the things that would need to happen to make me do it? So if it was get organized is so vague, but if you could say, I'd have to clean my garage and I'd have to clean out my office, use January to brainstorm all of the potential solutions and then do exactly like what he said. Pick one a month to tackle, as opposed to trying to start with get organized at the start of the year. You'll be overwhelmed.
So 2020, with the pandemic, we've all been living and changing everything that has happened. But with that, have the annual resolutions changed for the most part? Because it's typically lose weight, exercise more, eat better food, those, kind of the same things. Have they changed after we've gone through the pandemic?
I think they're mostly typically the same, and one that you didn't mention that's another common one is save more money. So people trying to get, financially healthy, physically healthy. Health and wellness are usually where, resolutions sort of fall. I do think, like I said, the changes are maybe people are more aware of their behaviors. I had a client yesterday, talking about her Amazon Prime purchases and just like how much, and you just like, it's just so easy and it can just really get away with you. So, like talking about being more mindful about how and when you eat or what you eat. I think people are like maybe tuning in a little more, which may be a little blessing of this whole COVID time, as there's a sort of a lot of opportunity to look in at yourself and what you're doing.
Well, and we have to say too, Amazon, some of these companies make it so easy, especially Amazon, the one swipe,
Mhm.
so you just choop, and then boom, it's there, it's
Yeah.
at your doorstep. So it does make it so much easier for shopping online. But with that, if someone is off the wagon,
Uh-huh.
how do they boost themselves back up to not feel defeated and continue down that negative path, but to, put the light switch back on and redirect what they're doing to get back on that positive path?
Absolutely. I think that people should maybe look at every 2 weeks as an opportunity to troubleshoot. Is there an opportunity? Was my goal too easy? Was I achieving it too easy, or was I not challenged at all? Then maybe there's an opportunity to bump something up or add a little more. Did I have problems? So there's an opportunity to sort of brainstorm. Do I need an accountability partner? Would I be better off hiring someone to help me with this? I think there's opportunities every 2 weeks to sort of reevaluate, how did I do? What were my highs? What were my lows? What do I need help with? And then in the spirit of COVID, that's where you pivot and then shift the goal there. So it's that instead of one singular goal for the whole year, it's a small chunk that you're sort of evaluating yourself over and over and over.
Carrie Craywick with us. She's with the Birmingham Maple Clinic. And with that, we now have so many different apps on our phone.
Mhm.
Are there some good apps or some good ways to kind of track your progress or your pitfalls as well?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, even like, of course, there are so many for when it comes to spending or exercise or things like that. So whatever you choose, you could certainly find an app for it. I think tracking is very linked to success. So if there's a behavior you want to change in yourself, even making a note either physically on a calendar or putting a note in a calendar on your phone or finding an app to do that, looking at yourself every single day, and then, like I said, taking a pause every 2 weeks to look back and say, yeah, what days did I hit? What days did I not? Do I need to reevaluate what I do on the weekends or, the start of my week? It'll give you some clues as to how to move forward.
So I've noticed too, I do like my Apple Watch, like the new updated one, because if you start walking or exercising, it will remind you, hey, it looks like you might be exercising. Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Which is good because for me, sometimes I'm the type of person I'll add things on my to-do list that I've already done
Mhm.
just so I can see that check mark.
Yeah, I love it. You had asked me about my resolutions, and it reminded me of one. I downloaded an app for doing planks, so do a couple minutes of planks a day, and that I can slip in anywhere. But it'll remind me too, you didn't do yours today. So, and there's really no excuse not to. Like something like that is like a 2-minute goal. It really doesn't change my routine any more than brushing my teeth, and I have no excuse not to sneak it into my day.
Yeah, but are you gonna, get down on the on the ground in the middle of Target to do your plank?
No, probably not. But right now, I'm pretty much, in the comfort of my home most of my day. So,
This is if we don't start in January, is it okay to start other times? Because we also hear where people, oh, I'm going to start a diet, but I'm going to start Mondays.
yeah.
What is that about our mindset that we need certain times or certain days or certain months to be able to start some of these new habits?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's really arbitrary. It is just like you said. It's probably just a weird habit of our mind that it feels better to have a start day. So we start. Often people, like you said, start at the new year. This year it was the 4th because of the way the weekend fell. So people were starting on Monday and not on the 1st. Sometimes people start in September as like the sort of school year as a start. So I think, yeah, we have these sort of like arbitrary beginnings, but there's really no need for it to be whatever your start day could be your start day. And like I said, I think that even if you have a month that doesn't seem to look well, use that month as an opportunity to revisit. I think like people who didn't start in January or have fallen short already can use the rest of this month to say, okay, what are all of my goals? What does it take to accomplish them? And then even, there are some ideas too, we're using a month, not just for, if one is weight loss and another is financial health and another is organization, you can break your year down that way, and there's some months that lend themselves to things more than others.
So we've all seen the commercial on Facebook where it talks about groups, dog walking groups or this group or this group or that group. How important is it for people to seek support in some of these outside groups and with people that they don't even know?
So important, because I think, like you said, there's so much experience of failure and shame when someone starts something and doesn't go well, or some of the vague goals like lose weight. You may be doing everything right and not lose weight, and that can be so upsetting. And when you're able to sort of share those stresses with other people and get reassurance and feedback that you're on the right track, that can really elevate your motivation. Even just being there for someone else is stress relieving for the giver and the receiver. So, both parties actually benefit from having connection to other people. And like I said, it can reduce the experience of shame. And actually, we're seeing so much. You talked about apps in terms of these like social apps that have a competitive nature, like Peloton and stuff. I mean, people are really getting involved because they have a sense that they want to show up and, be a part of something and compete a little.
But with that, I did see the story with the guy who lost so much weight, and one of the things he did is he was actually posting videos from the very beginning, I think on TikTok, and the before and the after in a year. So is there kind of that motivation when you go public, which can be embarrassing for people to have the courage to go public, but when they go public and people start following them, mm-hmm. Is that the motivation to keep going? And what about the people who fail? Because we see the end results of the ones that succeed.
Right, for sure. I think for the ones that succeed, I'm sure that creates like a safety net for them that that puts a little extra pressure on them to not fail or to not give up, because they maybe know they have some people watching them and holding them accountable. Like you said, for some, that pressure can be crushing. It could be humiliating. And so I think you'd have to sort of know yourself, know your personality, also know your followers, to have maybe a good gauge of if that's the right strategy for you.
Because we've seen people, we all follow these groups and you think it's motivation, but sometimes too, it's kind of like, forget it, because we see the end result. So it's good to see them going through the process, but the process takes a long time. And that's where we have to have a little bit of grace with ourselves.
Sure, absolutely. I think when you see those two, and this is where it goes with all the tiny, tiny little behaviors, is that you can see a picture, say, wow, so-and-so looks fabulous, but maybe not also account what were the sacrifices that had to happen, what things had to be given up, how did it, maybe inconvenience her routine or her family or whatever it is. And then you evaluate, am I willing to sort of invest that for that result and do that cost benefit analysis with yourself and be honest with yourself. If you're not willing to give something up, then that result isn't going to be for you and thus shouldn't probably be your goal.
With us here on the MegaCast is Carrie Krawick. She's with the Birmingham Maple Clinic. And with that, just a couple more minutes with you before we let you go. New Year with hope. So many people are continuing to struggle with the mental health aspect of the year that we just lived, and it's not over yet. How does that play into our resolutions and improving our lives as well?
So important. So in general, there's research that really says that people who are depressed are more likely to set vague, unreachable goals. And the setting of vague and unreachable goals actually makes people more depressed. So that's a really vicious cycle. So any effort to make a very, like we said, a very small daily goal is going to improve your likelihood of success, but it's also going to really contribute to your mood and be a sign of a healthy mood as it is. So certainly we've seen a year with a lot of depression, anxiety, substance overuse, all kinds of things that relate to mental health. So, I think if people do have sort of an awareness that maybe their moods or emotions are not where they want to be, it would be a great year to set some goals about your mental wellness too.
So Carrie, with that, do you have any advice for individuals that are witnessing maybe a loved one or a friend that is in this spiral of depression to try to help them? I don't want to say snap out of it because it is a process, but to help them shift their attitude and their mood back to something more positive?
Sure. I mean, I think in some ways it's always important to be bold and ask point blank. If you have any worry that someone's at risk of hurting or harming themselves or not, not healthy or well, to ask them point blank. And if they do say yes, I'm very depressed, or sometimes I even think about, my death or things like that, to really be available to them in a way to say, hey, look, there are ways we can get help. If they're really at high risk, to certainly call 911 or take them to a hospital. But it's a perfect time to start therapy, especially for people who historically haven't wanted to, because the ability to do it via Zoom and telehealth really makes it sort of a low effort, low shame. You can do it from the privacy of your home. You don't even have to put on clothes. You can wear your sweatpants and, it's a very low effort version of therapy that would really serve people who have historically avoided it.
And do you think because of the pandemic and the crisis that we've been through over the past 10 months, the issue of mental health in seeking therapy is becoming more acceptable? Because there was a stigma that was attached to it before.
Yeah, I think people certainly recognize that that people were having a lot of mental health experiences over the last months. Anxiety and anger and depression and, loss. And so I think people's emotions were more to the surface, which made it maybe also, like you said, it was shared more, at least in social media or even amongst, celebrities or public figures, to say, this is hard. There are feelings associated with how hard it is, and there is ways to get help and to treat it. I think perhaps also we've spent a lot of our lives very distracted, whether it's, with our phones and our apps, or, out in the world, or buying, think whatever it is. And, to be kind of at home and really reflecting on how do I feel, has given people the opportunity to sort of clean the slate and really take a look at how they really do want their lives to look.
So what are the signs, like when should an individual or a loved one push for someone to seek professional help? Are there certain signs to look for, or, when do we just know that this is just a funk that you're in?
Right. So I think, as clinicians, we always think of intensity, frequency, and duration, meaning how long has it lasted, how intense or deep are the feelings, and how long has it been over time? So, right, certainly like low mood or, more anxiety, that's sort of been in line with the situation, right? And if it's situational, like if something changed, would that go away? Then maybe it's fine. But if it persists, then that's when we would really say you need to get therapy. Now, I think it's hard because sometimes we're not together in person. You don't see any significant changes in weight, significant changes in hygiene and taking care of yourself. One thing we look for is avoidance of activities, which now, we're purposefully avoiding activities, but if you're, trying to draw someone out in an opportunity and they're canceling a lot, or just our zero sense of availability to do something, even socially, even if it's via Zoom, then maybe that's a sign that they're kind of pulling away and need to be checked in on.
Yeah, sometimes it's, just taking a simple walk outside can, reevaluate your mood and snap you out of some of these depressive moments that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's another kind of secret blessing of COVID, was people really reconnected with nature. And there's so much research that says getting outdoors, spending time in parks and outside is fabulous for your mood from a biological place, but also from your thoughts and feelings.
I will say there have been days where it's like you're binging Netflix, especially when you go into the wintertime, right? And it's snowing and it's cold outside. You're still in your pajamas, you're binging Netflix. But when you have a dog and they're like barking at you and pawing at you, you have to get up and go outside. So I will say pets can be a savior in some of these times as well.
For sure. I have a toddler, so it's kind of the same thing, but yes, and that was how we coped with March last year when school from home was like whatever we could do to get our worksheets done so we could get outside.
Wow. Yeah, I'm struggling with a dog. I couldn't imagine having a toddler. So anything else before we let you go that you want to maybe mention that we didn't touch on here today?
Actually, no, I think that this was a really great talk. I think, like I said, there is always hope to try something new, and it can just be one little step a day is all you need. And that motivation, it's like the journey of, 1,000 miles starts with a few steps. So just think one step a day is enough.
That's great advice. And with that, Carrie, quickly before we let you go, you're with the Birmingham Maple Clinic. If people were watching or listening to this interview, how can they get in contact with your staff?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we have a website, birminghammaple.com, so they could visit us on our website. They could also call our office. We do have office in staff, and that number is 248-646-6659.
Well, it's been great talking to you, and we so
Thank you.
appreciate your time. And again, our apologies for coming to you a little bit late as well. Carrie Krawick with us from Birmingham Maple Clinic. It's not too late. If you fell off the wagon for your resolutions, jump back on the wagon today. Carrie, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.